Hi everyone, Karen Cecilia here. I hope you're all doing well. Please remember to like this video and share it if you are if you find it interesting. Some might not. It's June, and the entire month of June is celebrated as Pride Month, and the whole world is lighted up with pride, even in places where gay rights are stifled and people can be killed. There are 38 countries where the gay community roams freely. Thank God for Jesus. Within the last 10 years, there has been great strides for the gay community, enjoying the same rights like straight people. you know. So that's kind of a big deal to celebrate. But of course, there are still about 67 countries in this world that criminalize homosexuality. A majority of them in Africa, of course, are a backward place. Yeah, someone who will disagree. But apart from South Africa, the entire African continent is very anti-gay. That don't mean that there are not gay people down there. There are a lot of gay people down in Africa, in Nigeria, in Angola. There's a lot of gay people down there. But they have to be careful because they will be imprisoned or in some cases put to death just for loving somebody. Imagine that. And I want to share with you, just briefly. I hope it's going to be brief. I promise you. Some of the some of the people who contributed to society and the enlightenment of our life that we now enjoy in 2026. And I want to focus mostly, just mention some people who have contributed to art and literature and poetry. And then I want to share the story of one man who could be credited with playing a major role, one of the most major role in winning World War II against Italy. Some of history's greatest minds were members of the gay community, and it starts with LGBTQIA. I learned over the last couple of weeks in conversations, just out of the blue, somebody asked why it starts with L, why is LGBTQ? And we were told that it starts with L in recognition of the hundreds and hundreds of lesbians across the world, and particularly in San Francisco and California and New York and those places that who stepped up for their brothers during the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s. And yes, in the 1980s, the AIDS epidemic just hit very quickly, very fast, and devastating. And gay men were being treated like the plague, and their families was staying far away from there. They were dying alone. They were suffering alone. And it was the lesbian community that stepped up, get them through, a lot of them through it, help make life easier for them to transition to their death, and basically bury a whole host of them. Maybe one of these days I'll do a little history lesson on that for you, just to remind us how close we came. Um, the world came to another, the AIDS epidemic. It was quite something, and maybe one of these days I'll share some of that with you. But we have had brilliant gay poets and playwrights who have made the world lighter, made the world braver, and has reshaped how we see the sun. I mean, we could reshape how we enjoy the ocean through words and language and writing. People like Oscar Wilde, who gave us the picture of Dorian Gray. For those of you who might have read that book, but if you haven't read the book, you really should watch the movie. It's great literature. I mean, great literature. And of course, Oscar Wilde was locked up and imprisoned for being gay. But there was a great James Baldwin, a black man, who gave us Go Tell It on the Mountain and Notes of a Native Son. James Baldwin was a very mouthy fellow. Boy, could beat up white people. God, all kind of things. Then there was this French poet by the name of Arthur Rimbaud. And I really have not read much about Arthur Rimbaud, except that he gave us the sweetest sensation of French poetry. I did not know that French poetry could be so sweet. It's a sensation. It's more a sensation that it is language, you know. But the language itself creates that sensation. And he wrote this thing called The Drunken Boat. And boy, it is a wonderful story. Remember, classic artistry. It is. Then there is Walt Whitman, who Mr. Biden credited with his stuttering. Said that when he was a young boy, he read poetry to help with his stuttering. And Walt Whitman was one of his heroes, you know. And Walt Whitman gave us great quotes. One of the best quotes came from Walt Whitman, and I quote it for you. And I quote, "I am as bad as the worst, but thank God I am as good as the best." Yeah, that's Mr. Walt Whitman. Then there's Allen Ginsberg, who gave us very radical literature, so radical that it was more radical because of his personal choices, and he chose not to hide who he was. He was open and expressed freely about his homosexuality, and he never take nobody the chat from the bad about that. There was E.M. Forrester, who gave great literature such as Howard's End. Come on, you all must have heard of Howard's End, and if you have not, you must have heard of A Room with a View. You know, if you have not read that, you must have seen a play or a movie. I think there's a movie with with a view. I think there is, which was the first work of literature actually to recognize the identity of transvestites. And you know, these great poets, these men leave a lasting legacy of poems and books and prose and literature and language that has shaped an enlightened generation. Everything that we are today in language and how we've coined things and how we've phrased things, some of these great men helped shape that. Ireland is probably one of the country with the most prolific writers and poets that form the gay community of their time. And they were women who loved women and made significant impact on our language and poetry as well. There was Jane Clark, Mary Darcy, Cherry Smith. Then there was the great Virginia Woolf, Audre Lorde, that black woman, let's tell you, Mary Oliver, Charlotte Bronte, who gave us Wuthering Heights, and Toni Morrison, Emily Dickens, Maya Angelou, Angela Carter, and I could go on and on and on. Gay people were also inventors, scientists, innovators. Sir Francis Bacon, for example, the early father of modern science. There was this black man, George Washington Carver, who was an agriculturist, who I think he did something about planting and sowing seeds, which is what we use up to today. There is Sally Ride, the NASA's first female astronaut, and of course the great Leonardo da Vinci, who gave us the Mona Lisa. And the man whose story I want to share with you now is a gentleman by the name of Alan Turing. You might have heard of him, or you might not have heard of him, but he has contributed greatly. He did to winning World War II. He was a great mathematician, a great mind, and he was right there in the middle of things at Bletchley Park, making his contribution to the wartime efforts. Now, Alan was born in London in 1912. Was born on June 7th, 2 days ago. Or June 7th was Tuesday, I think it was, or Monday, I don't know. But Alan was born in London in 1912, and he was a boy with a mind that seemed to move ahead of the world around him. According to his very dunce, illiterate father, complained to his mates all the time to say, boy, the boy's living in a time that is ahead of himself, like him living 50 years before him time. So Alan was a brilliant little boy from he was born. He was fascinated by numbers and patterns and machines and the possibility that thought itself might be understood through logic. At Sherborne School where he went, Alan formed a deep attachment to an older student, probably his first crush, probably his first love. student named Christopher Morgan. And you can watch Alan's story. There's a movie about Alan Turing, his story, and the whole code breaking thing called The Imitation Game. Um, yeah, that's it. The title of the movie is The Imitation Game, and it's Benedict Cumberbatch um, that played Alan. I think Keira Knightley is in that movie as well. The rest of the other people are not so well known. Yeah, there's one or two other people that is known. So when at the school, Alan had his first crush, probably fell in love with an older student named Christopher Morgan, and that friendship with Christopher ignited all kind of intelligence and feelings of love and inspiration that he and Alan shared. So when Morgan died suddenly from tuberculosis in 1930, Alan Turing was devastated, understandably so, and the loss stayed with him for a very long time. And so did the questions that loss left behind. Questions like, what was the mind? What did it mean to think? Could intelligence be described? Could it be preserved or even recreated? In 1936, Alan wrote and published a paper, an imaginary paper, and that paper imagined a machine capable of following instructions and performing any calculation that could be clearly described. It was theoretical, of course. Of course it was theoretical. But it is the foundation. It became one of the foundations of computer science, the foundation of much of what we know today. Long before computers became part of our everyday life, Turing had helped to explain what a computer could be. When World War II began, Alan Turing moved from theory into urgent service. He joined British secret code-breaking operation at Bletchley Park, a famous place that was set up during World War II, where the British was running all kind of war interference from there. So them not only do the code breaking, they were also training secret agents, women, using women and young girls to go into German places, go create all kind of havoc. But it's also a place where mathematicians and linguists, engineers and analysts work to read the encrypted German military messages. Now, and why was that important? Because this is what the importance of the work that Alan Turing was doing. One of the greatest challenges that the Allied forces had during World War II was Enigma. And Enigma was a machine that was used by Nazi Germany to scramble communications. The system that they developed produced an enormous number of possible settings, hundreds of numbers of possible settings, and changed constantly. And it was designed to keep the Allied forces blind. It worked for months, where they were blowing up U-boats, they were blowing up ships, they were blowing up supply lines, they were getting through all kinds of things. The Allied forces were struggling, trying to break the Enigma code. Turing helped to break that code. He broke Enigma's brain. Alan Turing broke Enigma's brain with his group of young mathematicians that he gathered together at Bletchley Park. What Turing did was he took an earlier breakthrough from the Polish people, and it became central to the development of what they call the Bombe, which was an electromechanical machine that helped code breakers to find the daily settings that was used by Enigma. The work at Bletchley Park allowed the Allies to read German messages, protect ships, track military movements, and make decisions that changed the course of the war. Historians have often credited Bletchley Park's code breaking with shortening World War II by as much as 2 years. It has been recorded in many history books, in many historical documents, that this particular operation of breaking the Enigma code broke the war, stunted the war that could have lasted at least 2 more years, and would have, according to historians, had that code not been broken. For most of his life, Alan Turing could not talk about any of it. His wartime work was classified. The public did not know the scale of what had happened inside Bletchley Park, and he could not use the truth to explain his own importance. Imagine that. The man who helped save lives on a massive scale returned to civilian life carrying one of the most important secrets of the war. After the war, Alan Turing kept working at the edge of the future. He was still exploring early computer design. He was exploring artificial intelligence and mathematical biology. He was still asking whether machines could think, and proposed what later became known as the Turing test. He studied patterns in nature and how complex forms could emerge from simple rules. Again and again and again, his mind moved toward questions that the rest of the world would spend decades trying to catch up to. And Alan Turing was also gay. That fact should not have mattered to the government that had relied on him to help them in a war. It should not have mattered either to society that benefited from his work. But no, a judgmental and bigoted society does not function that way. In Britain at the time, homosexual acts between men were criminalized. In 1952, a burglary occurred at Alan Turing's house. After reporting the burglary to the police, Turing acknowledged a relationship with a man who was there with him. And he acknowledged to the police that this is my partner. Instead of the police treating him as a victim of a crime, they opened an investigation. He was investigated and prosecuted for gross indecency. Now, with all the great things that Alan Turing did, the gay community celebrated him for the greatest thing yet. And that greatest thing was that he did not deny who he was. He did not hide behind any kind of word sparing. He said to them, yes, this man here in my house that you come see when you come investigate this burglary, yeah, we have a sexual relationship going on. He did not deny who he was. He did not invoke any kind of shame to make the court more comfortable. He did not set himself on fire to make anybody feel warm. Alan Turing's position was simple. He had done nothing wrong. But the law punished him anyway. Turing was convicted of gross indecency. And he was given two choices. He was forced to choose between going to prison or staying at home but undergo hormone treatment, which was at the time a form of chemical castration. You'd have the quack doctors them come and inject him with all kinds of things to cure the gay out of him. They have been experimenting with all of that from a long time. It's not a new thing. Cure the gay out of him. Chemical castration. That treatment changed his body and totally humiliated him. His security clearance was removed. His government work ended because he was doing a continued upgrade of the said machine for future reference and to build a better communication system or code-breaking system for the British Empire. And the country that had benefited from his genius, the country that was safe because Alan Turing was there, decided that his sexuality made him a threat. Alan Turing died June 7, 1954. He died from cyanide poisoning at his home in Wilmslow, in England. He was just 41 years old, 2 weeks short of his 42nd birthday. According to the coronary inquest, they ruled his death as suicide. Some conspiracy theorists don't believe it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't believe it was. For decades, the full measure of Alan Turing's life was hidden by secrecy and by the shame that was imposed on him by the very country that he dedicated his life to, the very people who he gave his all to keep safe. The full measure of his life was hidden by secrecy and by that shame that was imposed on him by the state. But as the truth about Bletchley Park became public decades and going on, so did the cruelty of what had been done to Alan Turing. In 2009, the British government issued a formal apology. And then in 2013, Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II granted Alan Turing a posthumous royal pardon. Those are few and far between. Those are few. You can always get a pardon, but a royal pardon, no, those are few. Later, thousands of other men convicted under old anti-gay laws were also pardoned under what became known as the Alan Turing Law. But a pardon is not repair. It's not justice. It does not return a life. It does not even repair the life, actually. It does not give Turing the decades that he should have had to keep thinking, to keep building, to keep teaching, to keep loving and changing the world. A brilliant mind lost at such an early age. Alan Turing helped defeat Hitler and shorten a war. He helped to defeat Hitler and shorten a war by 2 years. His ideas helped build the computer age. His questions about machines' intelligence and the human mind still shape the world we live in. And after all of that, the country he helped save prosecuted him for being gay. After all of that, the country that he served helped save lives, prosecuted him not for killing somebody, not for spilling state secrets. They prosecuted him for being gay, destroyed his life. Not just mistreated, not simply misunderstood. Prosecuted, stripped of his work, medically violated, and left to live under the weight of a punishment that should never have existed. Alan Turing had already changed the world by age 41. But hate, homophobia, religious zealotry, ignorance took that away from all of us. Took him away from all of us. He should have had decades more to thrive, to think, to build, to unravel, to decode, to question. But his life was cut short. And the world lost a genius too soon. And on this, celebrating Pride Month, I salute Alan Turing. Just one of the many, 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 many geniuses that have contributed to making our world a much better place, a much safer place. Thank you all for listening. God bless you all. Remember to like the video and share it. Stay safe, everybody, and please do keep the children safe. See you next time.